Joining us now is the Chairman and Managing Director of Biocon, Kiran Majumdar. She's a well-known face. Thank you, ma'am, so much for joining us here on WION. Let me ask you, what's your take on the impact that the budget has had?
Well, I think the Finance Minister has basically focused on the rural and agricultural sector in terms of economic development. And he has basically allocated a huge boost of 25% in rural spend. Now, I think this is definitely something which is much required for the country. And I guess we will see growth momentum, because I think the agricultural sector is growing at a rate which basically allows the economic development to grow at a faster rate. But having said that, I think we also need to make sure that we see large investments in infrastructure. I certainly believe rural infrastructure is extremely important, because we do need to urbanize beyond the 200 urban centers of growth that we currently have. And in that respect, I think we need to basically urbanize in some of the rural reaches of our country. So I do hope that this infrastructure spend that is going to be targeting these rural reaches actually is in this direction. So they have indicated various measures in terms of skill development, the Manrega, and innovation in the villages of India. So I hope that something basically helps to rev up some of the development in rural India. But I would like to see a very large spend in terms of digital infrastructure, because without digital infrastructure, you are not going to be able to leapfrog in terms of education and healthcare that are urgently needed.
And ma'am, what are your thoughts on the Finance Minister stating that demonetization will have a transient and a multiplier effect on the economy and lead to a higher GDP growth?
Well, I think demonetization has certainly had a big impact on slowing down our GDP growth. I think that is something which is undisputable. And I think the Chief Economic Advisor also basically shared the impact of demonetization in terms of the projected growth, which has come down. And it is pegged anywhere between 6.5 to 7.1% for next fiscal. And I think what we really need to see is how we basically remonetize after this demonetization, and how will the revival of demonetization take place and at what pace. I think that's what really needs to be tracked.
Ma'am, and a strong focus on pro-poor schemes, make it a balanced budget in your opinion?
Well, there are a number of schemes, affordable housing and various other schemes, and I think there has been a huge allocation of agricultural credit like never before, 10 lakh crores. Things like that have been very positive. I think MSMEs and startups also have been incentivized by reducing their tax rates to 25%. So I think overall it's a very balanced budget, but I think the Finance Minister has sort of played within his zone of comfort, because I think of the impending GST and other aspects of demonetization. So I think he hasn't really, spelt out too many, sort of bold reforms that we were expecting. I would have liked to have seen some signaling to large corporates in terms of reducing the corporate tax rates, but that hasn't happened. And if the Finance Minister has to be held to his promise of reducing the tax rate to 25% in 3 years, then I think he should have taken this opportunity to at least start reducing corporate tax rate.
And ma'am, do you agree with the criticism that the Finance Minister could have done a lot more for job creation and the agriculture sector?
I don't agree that he hasn't done enough for agriculture. I think agriculture is one sector where they have basically done a lot in this budget. And in fact, he has gone on to say that, they're going to basically incentivize cooperative farming and contract farming. So I think from that point of view, I don't have any qualms with the finance ministry for what they've done in the rural economy and in the agricultural economy. But yes, I think, we must bring back an investment climate for private sector to invest. And I think that's where I would have liked to have seen the government do a lot more, and that's where I felt that the finance ministry has fallen short.
And lastly, would you label it as a populist and progressive budget?
No, I wouldn't call it a populist budget because, it's not the right phraseology to use for this budget. I think he's basically tried to make it a very egalitarian budget. He certainly needs to make sure that we focus on, lifting the poor and, the jobless out of their economically unviable their living, and bring them into a better quality of livelihood. So I think from that point of view, he's balanced the budget quite well. But I think, he hasn't really, apart from FIPB, which he has done away with, which is, I think, most welcome, I haven't seen any big bang reforms, let's put it that way. And from that point, and there I only want to give him the benefit of the doubt because we have to still implement GST, and I hope that GST will address a lot of these concerns.
Okay, ma'am, thank you so much for your inputs there. That was Kiran Majumdar giving her thoughts on the budget.